Voice. All right. Okay. Almost time's up. Let's see if we can make this quick transition. Everyone, welcome everyone. All right, here we go. Look at that. The Black Betterment Broadcast, and we're going to now switch to. There you go. Look at that. So we're at the 50. This is the fifth. Yeah, the 55th show. There you go. All right, 55 shows. Excellent. Now, we're going to go through our traditional intro. I am your host, Rap Raven, and this is the Black Betterment Broadcast. And let's go through our intro. We have a great show for you. We have a very interesting guest who's going to jump on and explain his story, and we're going to hope to chip in and listen. But let us go through the intro first, and here we go. So, unfortunately, after much research, I've concluded that currently Black people are collectively inadequate, which is most unfortunate. But because of that reality that we're facing, we're trying to put in certain protocols to actually make Black people work better as a team and come together and find solutions. Right. So, when people discuss stuff on this particular show, we want to make sure we use the 4D values. Now, what are the 4D values I hear you say? There's discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. If you can use these 4 things when you come to the show, or in general, when you meet other brothers and sisters out in the world, all over the world, this will help us find solutions at a better pace and try to be respectful in everything we do, because we have the same goals, one better, right? That's what it is. Now, if we can try to use less derogatory language and more descriptive language, that will be very helpful. Towards the left-hand side is of the screen, those who have a screen, a collection of words that people tend to use freely. I would say that if we could use a replacement for those words onto your right, this might come across as more constructive and allow us to find solutions. But these are not necessarily topics we talk about week to week, so it's just there as a kind of like, a key that you can follow if you need. Voila. Now, what is Black Betterment? Black Betterment is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. That's it. So we break down Black Betterment is a lifestyle. So the idea of this broadcast for everyone who's tuning in live and also on when it's recorded and in the future time, the idea of this broadcast and other broadcasts that hopefully will influence is to promote the lifestyle of Black Betterment, which is, as we said before, Black people helping Black people on Black issues. There you go, for betterment. Right, now, after this disclaimer, because we might be showing videos today, and we want to let them know that these videos are not our own videos, and it's copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit educational, personal use, tips, bans in the favor of fair use. So all we're saying there is basically we might show videos and it's not ours. We don't want to, go over copyright. We don't get paid for these shows. It's all for educational stuff. So not to worry. Now, okay, today's fantastic episode is how racial whitening affects Black generational wealth, and we have our guest, Payton Rawls, discusses his challenges and concerns about his legacy and generational wealth. Now, before I introduce our guest, and we always are respectful guests coming out, and we always look forward to new guests joining. I'll just break down how we interacted. Oddly enough, we met on a webpage called Black Love, which is not to worry for now. What it is many Black people follow a page called Black Love where we have images of Black people happily married together. And this particular Black Love page, I think they've changed what Black Love might mean, and they're showing many mixed couples and using the hashtag Black Love. So naturally, people like myself are questioning: is that the same? Is that right? Is that really right? We're not too sure. I think I interact with many people in some of these forums, and brother Payton gave me a brief story of why this topic is interesting, because I mentioned generational wealth when I was talking about why it might be necessary for Black people to love Black people. People asking what is the benefits, and I push that forward. Now, I've taken too much time speaking about this stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to add brother Payton to the show. So let me turn on my video and add him. There we go. Let's see where it is. Start camera. Welcome, brother. How's it going?
It's good, man. How you feeling?
Excellent. So, brother is obviously from the States. You have to tell us where, because obviously you're you know more about where you're from than we do.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So all over. Honestly, I grew up Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. So pretty solid poverty, amount of poverty. And right now, we just moved to Dallas from Massachusetts.
So you're Philadelphia born and raised, is that right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
North. North Philly.
Oh, North Philly. Okay.
With the F on the end.
All right. You moved. So basically, the reason why we're here is because obviously we met funny enough, in a forum, Black Love, discussing the concept of generational wealth. Now, what took interest? Why are you taking interest in generational wealth? What does this mean to you, and how does this impact the Black community in your mind? Just so we can have a.
Okay, I mean, it kind of goes back to starts with where I started. So I grew up, I'm 46, so I grew up in the 80s, and that was that epidemic when the crack hit. I grew up in a family that was very religious, very patriarchal, very family centered, Nation of Islam, type of situation. So very very structured. It's all about family. And when crack hit, it was just decimated. I watched my whole neighborhood. I watched my whole family personally, just from my mother to my father, just go from being these queens to being crack addicts. So I grew up poor, and I wasn't just poor. I was the poorest kid in my neighborhood. I was that kid, like, if someone I got someone's hand-me-downs, someone could always say, "Hey, those are my sneakers," and they actually wear their sneakers. So I was that kid. I was the poorest kid in my neighborhood. So money was always a thing to me. I remember being very young. It wasn't for myself. I remember being very young and thinking I wanted to have kids. And the biggest thing that I remember was not being able to get the things I wanted as a kid, and not being able to. I didn't want to do that to my kids. I didn't want to not be able to provide for my children easily. That always stuck with me. Being hungry, not having heat in the wintertime, or hot water or food. Like, those things really stuck with me. So I was always driven to do more, even though, I was running the streets for a while. I didn't understand, how to get to that point of success, financial success, that freedom. I didn't know how to get to that because I had no role models. And at a certain point, I went through a few things and learned some lessons and started focusing on school. Because the one thing I always had was that I was intelligent. Even before the crack hit, my parents homeschooled us, so I had that. And so I was like, I need to go in that direction. So I started following that direction. Went to college. I thought that was what you do. You watch Brady Bunch. Growing up, you watch all the people who have the American dream, and it usually starts with education. So to me, that was the answer. You get an education, and you work a job, and you get paid tons of money, and you end up wealthy. That's what you think. That's what you think how it works. But the system's rigged. And the more you learn about history and how the system works, the system is built on ownership. It's designed for ownership. Those are the people who are going to benefit the most.
Okay.
I didn't learn that until, I was, in my late 30s, going into my 40s. But one of the things that always stuck out to me was that I started learning about what I had to do and how I had to start. And I went to Bucknell University, which is predominantly white, very wealthy school. And listening to the things that these people had coming into college, it was amazing. Like, I couldn't believe these kids were driving brand new cars at the time, Grand Cherokees, and I'm like, this is completely foreign to me. And so you listen and you start meeting their parents, or you listen to the stories about their parents and the things that they've given them. And these are none of the things that Black people knew, none of the things that I knew from Black people that I grew up in poverty. They didn't understand about passing things down. They didn't understand that starting your kid off better than you started. You usually pass debt on to your kids. You don't teach them those lessons, but they don't understand that. And there's a whole, obviously, historical context that goes along with that. We had Black Wall Street, obviously. We had other economic powers, but they were always stripped from us. They were, all kinds of ways that, we were swindled. But, culturally, we don't have that education. We don't have that knowledge base, or we don't even have faith enough in our power to take advantage of that, for any number of reasons. So as I started getting older and working and, working for 20 years, I was like, okay, this isn't it. This isn't going to happen. Because it kind of segues into, I had my first child I had when I was in college, and her mom was white. And so I started off immediately, child support right out of college, child support, student loans. you know, both of those. And I'm a chemical engineer, so I started off making pretty good money. But you know, those two, you know, they'll crush you. And so I started off in a poverty kind of setting. I wasn't in poverty, but I didn't have enough to really save. I didn't have enough to you know, put away or invest. So it was always hand to mouth, you know. So as I got older and started realizing, okay, I'm not going to have enough to retire. I'm not going to have enough to pass anything down. I was like, this job thing isn't going to do it. This isn't going to get the job done. No matter how much more money I made, it still wasn't going to bridge that gap between the time I lost, you know, when I was young, saving or not investing, to the, you know, to my age of 38, to the point where I wanted to retire. And so I got more business minded. You know, I'd had friends who I spoke to them, you know, from my second year, my second daughter. We'd spoken, we sat on my sofa, and I'd listened to a friend of mine who's Black, Jamaican brother. And he talked about what he wanted to do with real estate. And he told me that he wanted to do X, Y, Z. And we sat there, my wife at the time, who was Russian, you know, she was, you know, feeding my daughter. And I remember the conversation we had. I was like, wow, that's amazing he would do that. But in my head, I was like, that's not for me. I'm going to do this job thing. And I watched him over the next 20 years build himself up and build his businesses up so that he is at a point where money is not even an issue. You know, like it's a non-issue. And I watched him build this, and that he had that mentality that he was going to do it. And he built it literally from scratch. And I was like, as I got older, I was like, well, why haven't I done that? Or why don't I do that? And it took a shift. So once I decided that I was going to start building something to pass down to my kids, I was like, okay, I need to get more business minded. I started opening businesses and got with my wife. And honestly, she was a big part of that, because when I met her, she had a business already. And it was one of those things where, okay, my wife has a business. There's no way I can't match her hustle. You know, I can't just work a job. And my job pays really well, but I was like, I need to do more. I need to have a different mentality. If she has the gumption and the wherewithal to build something, I need to be right alongside her building me something too. So that,
may I ask, when you say your wife, is this your Russian wife?
No. We were divorced. My wife's Haitian.
Your wife's Haitian.
Yeah.
Okay, so you when you met your wife, just to help tell the story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was Haitian, and she also had her own business as well that she was running. Right, cool. Carry on. Sounds good.
Yeah, and you know, it was one of those things where I was just inspired, and she encouraged me, and I really just, you know, went headlong into real estate and opening another business. So it's one of those things. But I also started thinking, because one of the things we were talking about is passing things down to our kids. You know, that's one of the main discussions we have when it comes to our businesses. You know, what are we going to leave our kids? Who are we going to leave it to? How are we going to leave it? What's our legacy going to be? That's a very real conversation, one that I've never had with anyone else or another woman that I've been with. So it was you know, it's something that became a reality and very tangible. And, you know, early retirement became very tangible suddenly. So honestly, it was weird, because we were having a conversation in the chat room about redefining what Black love is, and you know, that, and then we got into you know, that conversation about legacy. And I have two biracial daughters, and it was the weirdest conversation, because I was talking to my wife about it, and one of my daughters is dating a white guy, which, you know, be happy. You know, I want her to be happy more than anything. I want her to have someone that treats her well. But I'm thinking in 100-year clips. You know, I'm thinking generationally, and I'm not thinking, you know, from a financial perspective. I'm like, okay, I want to build a legacy, not just for my family, but for Black people. You know, like economic empowerment for us, not just, you know, for me and mine, and then, you know, get what I can and run. It's for us. And I started thinking, like, okay, what happens if, you know, my daughter has a kid by this guy? You know, she's already biracial, has a kid by this blonde hair, blue eyed guy. And I'm like, and lives in this white area. And I'm like, what are those kids gonna, you know, be? Like, how are they going to identify? And I'm like, more than likely they're going to identify, you know, with white.
Yeah.
And if they don't, the one after them might, because there's a few Black people in the area. So, but in a couple of generations, I'm gone. I pretty much disappeared from the family. And it was it was bothering me because I was like, I'm going to do all this work. And mind you, they're my family no matter what, obviously.
Of course.
I'm thinking, I'm doing all this work. I'm building myself up from nothing.
Yeah.
Scratching and getting my piece of the pie from a society or world that doesn't want me to have it. Put my little 2 nickels together to build something and multiply, only to turn around and give it back in less than a couple generations to the people who I had to fight for it. Who had to fight for it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's a troubling concept or a troubling dilemma to have.
It is. And so let me just jump in. So first of all, because there's many things you said that we have to unpack, which is very important. Because you said you grew up in poverty, right? And essentially what you are doing is you're reversing the back-to-back generational challenges that you pretty much inherited, right? You wasn't trained about this. You had to discover it. And then within your lifetime, you're reversing that history so that your legacy and your offspring don't have to go through what you went through.
Absolutely.
Right? But then you obviously realize that where you come from, depending on the choices of your offspring, they will just take the everything you've done and put it back to the community that benefited from how you were living prior, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and this is why information is important and teaching is important. But once again, we make choices when we're in the world of ignorance that has a legacy impact. So when you mentioned like the crack epidemic, the drug epidemic, right? The legacy of that is just you would have constructive families just decimated, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And this could go on, like people could be taken out of the game, obviously with death and stuff, but obviously just being inactive, not being able to actually work and not be able to function, and then how that then impacts the things they do to get money, all that kind of stuff, right? And how that impacts an entire generation. And it's interesting because I want us to remember what you said there about the crack epidemic, because one thing we try to do on this show is we try to look at patterns of and methods that seem to always happen, but we can't pinpoint how. And we understand that the crack epidemic in the Americas it seemed to hit the black communities much more harder than anywhere else, it seems, and pretty much devastated. They say crack in the 80s was crazy, right? But then when you look at the Native Indians and the Aborigines, we also see alcohol dependencies quite at a high rate. And this is what I'm saying is that this is why some people they correlate what is the link between this ignorance of what's happening, oppression beforehand, and then you have this mass dependencies on this kind of narcotic that is coming from outside the community. Because so essentially you said that. Now you mentioned that you had a Jamaican friend who was business minded.
Yes.
And you had you've married a Haitian woman. Now, do you see a difference? And this is something that we'll cover as well, for black people who migrate to the Americas, and when it comes to when they think about generational wealth, to the people who actually the African Americans, the Americans in there at times. Do you see a difference in business mindset?
Honestly, I don't think it's necessarily cultural, because I see the same mentality amongst other islanders as African Americans. They suffered the same kind of the same type of slavery and the same type of oppression that we've suffered, just under different, the nuances are different, but they suffered that same yoke. They've been under the same yoke of oppression.
Same history, different place.
Yeah, and that same mentality, of that same beat down mentality that we face, we've also suffered, obviously, with some differences. But I think no but to it. I think those people who break away from that are I think those people across the cultures are just cut from a different cloth. They're willing to challenge the norm. They're willing to challenge the wisdoms of their mother and their father that say just get a job and work for this person and save your money and do whatever you're going to do, but keep that really traditional mindset. I think those people, just like in any culture, whether it's white, black, Asian, whatever, they have a different mindset and they break away from the norm and do something different. And I think that's across all the, the cultural strata.
So did you mention that your family was part of the Nation of Islam? Did I
Yeah,
write that?
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. So
Islam.
right. So okay. So you could. So tell me how that worked, because obviously your first family was with a Russian European. So
Yeah.
was that an issue at the time? Not particularly.
Well, it's okay. So my family, they're going to support me. Some people might have a problem with it, but they know they can say whatever they wanted. I'm just going to do what I was going to do, no matter what. But I didn't really get any backlash. You know, like one, she's not my ex-wife Irina. She's a strong woman. Like she's not. She ain't no punk. So you know, she demands respect in all arenas. So there's not going to be any clowning going on. No one's going to clown her because she has that strength. She stands on her own. It's across cultural. It's not, you know, who to mess with and who not to mess with. You know, everybody does, and she's one of those women that, you know, she demands respect no matter where she goes. So that was never an issue. And when my family, you know, met her, by the time we got to that, we were long done with kind of Nation of Islam. My dad had already become a Christian and pastor, and he'd already gotten off drugs. My mom was still a Muslim, but you know, no one was really, you know, chanting, you know, white devil this, white devil that. Although, you know, obviously there is some prejudice in my family towards white people. But at the same time, you know, they gave her fair shot. So there was never any problems. And if there was, they know I'd be like, hey, no, that's not how this is going down.
So has your views changed since meeting? Like, has your racial views changed since meeting your Haitian wife?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a really this is a lot to unpack. It's been a really involved evolution, because growing up in the 80s, especially, dark skin wasn't in. So, you know, you had to grow up with all that self-hate of being black, of seeing everything that wasn't black being good. You know, you watch TV, you see everyone with the nice houses, everyone's white, everyone's doing well. So for me, it took a lot of mental, you know, acrobats to get to that point of self-love, where you grow up in a nation and you're supposed to love yourself, but then with the demise of the black family also comes the demise of your self-esteem, because it's wrapped up in your family, and you find that your family is you know, become this thing that hurts you. It's a detriment to you, as opposed to uplifting you. And so, you know, you start seeing things as black as bad and white as good, you know, because you see some of your first kindnesses come from white people, where they don't have to suffer the traumas that, you know, we've suffered. So they have the room to be kind, where, you know, when you're suffering, there's not a lot of patience there. There's not a lot of room for kindness. There's toughness, get it done, shut up, stuff, you know. But that softness coming from outside your community, it's you know, it makes you, it shifts you. You're like, oh, well, this is better than that. And so when I went to college, I actually was like, okay, you know, it was always in my head, I'm married to this beautiful black woman, have these beautiful black babies, and you know, all this whole black narrative that I had in my head. And mind you, I grew up without my mom. She wasn't around. Obviously, she was on drugs. So I had a lot of things that I needed to unpack and change and fix within myself, especially with my regard to black women. Realizing that all these black women weren't the ones that I knew. Because when I got there, it was like some heartbreaks and things like that. And I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And when I met my wife, it wasn't that I was chasing a white woman. It was that she was just that exceptional, to be honest. Like, she was that type of person that made me say, you know, I have someone really special here. Am I really going to get rid of that because, or not pursue that because of her race? Am I really going to deny this blessing because she's not the color I want her to be? You know? And so I was like, no, I'm gonna ride with her. And I was like, I'm just gonna have to make my way in this world with a white wife. I know there's some things about the culture that I'm not gonna be a part of anymore. You know, I know that I'll never get to be with a black woman again, which I love black women. But I knew that there were some things I was giving up. There were some accesses that I wouldn't be allowed to. I knew that I'd be giving that kind of part of my culture up, which was tougher than I thought.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was very tough. It was very tough. It was hard, but that evolution, where I'm thinking in my head is, oh, okay, because when you talk about race, okay, race is fictitious. It's not a real thing that exists. It's a classification that people made up. You got Angloid, Caucasoid. Caucasoid.
Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, Australoid.
Yeah, so they made that up. It's something that people decided. We weren't Negroid before white people came around and started trying to label us. Yeah. And so I was looking at that and I was like, okay, so if this isn't real, why should I? Because I was looking at trying to break all the boundaries, the mental boundaries. I was like, if this isn't real, why should, or if someone else, another man made this up, why should I be defined by it? And so I started looking at that and saying, well, no, I'm not going to consider myself whatever you think I am. I am who I am. And I find that though I still have that mindset that this is all fictitious. Okay, I see people for who they are, but at the same time, I do operate within a system, and that evolution had to come of thought. That even though I have this mindset, I still have to operate in this system. And it's like if you're saying, with money, okay, I believe that everyone should have, everything that they need. This is what I believe. I think everyone should have it, but in order for me to obtain that, I still have to operate within the system the framework that they're working in. Things work.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously, you're going to probably move on to how your views might slightly change or alter here and there. But when you say that, that you understand there's a social construct of race, and when you're picking your partner, you realize that everyone's human, this kind of stuff, right? And it's historical words and this kind of stuff. But despite all that, you still operate in a power dynamic that recognizes those constructs, and your life will be guided by them, regardless of the truth of them. And I think this is one thing that this show tries to cover, that usually it seems to be Black people without the power who are recognizing these different constructs and how we should be torn down, and I'm not going to live by it. But when we tend to do it like that, it's in isolation. So essentially, we are contributing more to the challenge, because the people who set up the system work as a unit. Mm-hmm. They work as a team. Now, I was going to show, if I show you a diagram here, this is some good stuff to show you for now. But it's almost like this one here on the left, on the left, white people's welfare network practices. This is how they network. You see, it's almost like everything's connected, and the size of the zeros is the amount, but the network. On the right is how Black people seem to network. You see, some people are doing really well, but there's no connection. You see, and obviously some things just going completely off. And I guess we could add a line to take this off and take it straight. This could be you technically, right? As in, you could take your wealth and just put it back into the
right there.
Yeah, so we can extend it for yourself. And what one of the terms we coin here is a notion of benchmark rebranding. Mm-hmm. What Black people do is there is a benchmark that most cultural groups try to obtain and get to, and what we do is we rebrand it. So if the concept is find a Black woman, find a Black man, have a family, community, we might go, well, hold on. The world is beautiful. People are beautiful. I don't want to fall for the branding that the oppressive given me. I'm going to love everyone. And then that's what we call benchmark rebranding. And what we do in some cases is we promote that. So we promote that to Black people. And then that's a good sounding thing. Like that sounds like some spiritually high elevated.
No, really, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But in reality, if you're not dominating in the system, if you're not the person setting the rules, we are actually practicing this bit here when we do that, you see, because the people who actually who own the rules and own the concepts and the corporations, they're doing this.
Absolutely.
And this is why what I'll do is, even though you're a guest, I'll show you a quick video, because remember you said about crack in the 80s. So what is in America, we have Europeans who coming from England, France, and other places, right? And then you have Europeans go from Denmark going to South Africa. Then you have Europeans in Brazil and Europeans in Australia, and they're very different. They've got different cultures, speak different languages, but they seem to not practice benchmark rebranding. They seem to understand how power works. So when we look at the Aboriginal people in all the lands, even though they don't know each other, they all seem to have the same outcome. So watch this. It'll be a 1 minute. Hold on.
Happened here in the wilds of the far northwest, heady days now largely forgotten. These days, the remote town of Halls Creek has a different, more troubling obsession to deal with. It's the middle of the afternoon and most of these Aborigines have been drinking for several hours.
My name is Big Mama Helen.
It's not an isolated incident. This passes for normal in this quiet cattle town, and it's consuming the lives of many.
It's a huge problem in Halls Creek, and the fact of the matter is it's not getting better. It's just getting worse, and it's just out of control.
Unlike the neighbouring town of Fitzroy Crossing 2 hours away, Halls Creek has no restrictions on alcohol. From noon every day, any adult can buy full-strength alcohol from liquor stores. When night comes, the full effect of the non-stop drinking can be seen. It often ends in drunkenness and sometimes violence and increasingly suicide. Faced with limited opportunities, many young people are killing themselves, often after drink and drug binges.
So let me stop it there. It goes on. And when you look at that kind of lifestyle, there's a similar thing we observe in the Native American community at some points, right? And then what we also notice, though, is if I was to go back and we look here, because we're based in the UK, that's Australia, but no matter where we find certain European behavioral patterns, it seems to be very similar. And so when we look at, where was that? I think I have a picture somewhere. Where is it? Oh, there we go. So on the left is a white Aboriginal person. Oh, well, let me switch back. Voila. So on the left is a white Aboriginal person, and on the right is a black Aboriginal person. You see, that one. I think they're both more or less whatever. So I've showed two more or less of the same kind of people group. But what we're finding is many of the white Aboriginals are getting a lot of the benefits that was meant to be like reparations and paybacks to, because obviously it's a form of genocide what happened to the Aboriginals. But even though the Aboriginals went through a genocide, there's a country called Tasmania, which is right next to Australia. Similar people, same, they were wiped out completely. And despite this, the Aborigines will say what you said in the sense of like, it's a construct, love has no color, this kind of stuff. And then the ones who not, they might be alcoholic and drunk. And then naturally, in that state, the richer European, Australian community will show kindness. And then, like you said before, they're associating that kindness with white people in general. And then they look to be with white people. So this is this other So this other diagram here, I don't know if you're familiar with Bruce Lee.
Yeah, who isn't?
Yeah, very well. He is essentially the most important martial artist to come from the Asian, Hong Kong, China kind of place, and bring it to the Western world. Yeah. But when he came here, this is his family here. He married a European lady, but unfortunately passed away. So she's inherited all his assets. Now, anytime you use his likeness or you use him, you have to pay royalties. Yeah. Unfortunately, his son was killed in shooting film, and he also married a European, and his daughter also married a European. This is his daughter's daughter. So as you're seeing, if the mother controls the estate, and the kids will install it. But it's safe to say at this point that the biggest Asian martial artist will not be controlled by the Asian community.
Absolutely, no. Yeah.
So this is what this is when you were talking about the love and that kind of stuff. This is the stuff that Europeans don't talk about, to the most part, right? They understand planning, like generations down. And when you said things about crack epidemic, I look at patterns and perceptions, right? And same pattern. Drugs all in the black community, alcohol and drugs in the Aboriginal community, alcohol and drugs in the native community.
I mean, you gotta. That's a tool. It is absolutely a tool.
Yes,
depressor. Like it's historically, like you put people under these kind of depressive conditions, and you give them a temporary out, and they'll take it. And until it becomes an abusive pattern, and they're easy to control. It's out of the playbook that's been going on, at least across the world and colonial world, since colonialism started. So. It's a tool, these, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or whatever, but, they oppress these people You know, put them in these horrible conditions,
Mm.
strip their pride from them. You know,
Mm.
make them depressed, and then give them a respite,
Mm.
and then come in at like the savior, and it's a total mind game.
It is. So with your, because you've obviously got two parents with your Russian ex-wife, have you ever spoke to them about like black pride and financial wealth and the history and trying to network over black people to try to fix the challenges of the past, or are they far removed from this kind of concept?
They're removed from that kind of conversation. Like with with my ex-wife, it's just she didn't get the concept or didn't believe the concept. Like we have vastly different opinions when it comes to politics, and humanity and charity.
Is this your wife or your daughter? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
My daughter, my wife,
Okay.
we're on the same page. There's which again is one of those things that you miss, participating in the culture. When you're with a black woman, it's a whole different ball game, because there's some things you don't have to explain. There's some things that she'll get with just a look, and
Yeah.
you don't have to go through that conversation over and over again or convince them of that conversation.
Right,
Which, I found, having dated white women, I was like, okay, I can't keep explaining to you why this is wrong, or why, people are upset and they're rioting, protesting, rioting, whatever. This is what they're doing because they have a right to be upset. You don't have a right to judge that, and it's hard having that conversation with someone over and over that they don't get it. For me, I was just like, okay, I'm done. I was like, nah, I can't. I need that.
Yeah. Last week we showed from the UK a black lady who she identified as woke, and she lived in a part of England where it was predominantly white people, and she found that every time she had to constantly explain the oppression of black people, and also there was a fetish going on as well that she had to tackle with them. But
yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Real talk. Yeah, that's seriously. That's the thing. Because for me, it was like, do you like me for me, or you like me because I'm black? And
right.
That I had. It sounds like you want me to be. The only place you want me to be black is in the bedroom.
Right. Okay.
The only place you want me to be black. Every place else you want me to be Bucknell graduate, engineer. Respectful. You want me to. You want me to show me off, and I'm that. Anyone knows me. They knows that. I'm gonna be me no matter what, and say what's on my mind. But but there's a real thing where I was like, okay, I'm not your fetish, and it made me shy away.
Yes, and this is what I'm trying to tell you about patterns. You see, so even though you're in the States, people are in South Africa, people are in Brazil. I see a similar pattern, and this show starts, and this is how I was speaking with that. I recognize, in my opinion, from my research, that black people have been rendered collectively inadequate. Like, we are not operating at the same level as every other people group. So the reason why I was talking in the Black Love forum is because black love, for the mixed love, tends to benefit non-black people more than black people. When you look up, when you break down assets, self-esteem, this kind of stuff, dealing with actual issues. You said yourself that when you were younger in the 80s, 90s, and this kind of stuff, there was a dark skin hatred that was circulating, right? And this is also one thing we tried to fix now with the women, because right now, unfortunately, we find that there are many dark skinned men who don't like dark skinned women, and we're pushing this forward to a form of self hatred.
You know what? It's funny. It's like I was absolutely that guy. And it's funny, when I started having my evolution, I started to think, I was like I love dark skinned women. I don't get where I got this idea that light skin was better. And I started retracing my steps. And it's funny, I said to my wife, because like it was the funniest thing. We had the funniest story, because she thought that I didn't date black women because she'd see me with white women and they might have been my friends or whatever. But she's like, what's wrong with white women? I didn't think you dated black women. I'm like, yo, I love black women. Like, I love black women. It was just, in the area I was living, it was mostly white, or the black women I came across weren't the black women I was interested in. Like if I was, I needed a sister that had it together. I'm like, I'm of a certain, status. I'm educated. That's what I want. And in those areas, it was hard to find. But when I was younger, I was telling her, I was like, hey, listen, the first women that I, found attractive looked like me. And so the first time I took her back to my house to meet my family, it was a barbecue. And literally my first two crushes were there. And I was like, these are the first two women that I ever had a crush on. I was like, look at them, dark skin, beautiful. And I realized that I had to be taught to not like dark skin from my dad, from other family members from the community, dark skin, black African beauty scratcher, or you too black, or stay out of the sun. And, you find out.
So when you say your dad was part of the Nation of Islam, is that right?
Yeah.
But he then became a priest.
Preacher, yeah. Much later. That's like a 20-year span of being on drugs and stuff like that.
All right. So just because just how the nation operates in different places, it's interesting to hear a nation member disparage dark-skinned people.
You would think, right?
Yeah, you would. I understand, but then you did say that there was challenges going on in the community at the time. I don't know, how that affected people, but it is interesting because we're starting a Black Love campaign. I says we're trying to actually actively market and have ways to promote Black people loving Black people and constructive Black people coming together, and how that connects to community building and economic network and this kind of stuff, right? Because unfortunately, if we don't have this conversation, it won't happen. And especially in England, what we find is other community, the Asian community, Jewish communities, kind of people, they understand this very well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the phenomenon called enclave minority. They come here and they stick together and they pool their resources and their culture and they keep it intact. And they keep their languages.
Yeah.
We didn't have that option though. We didn't have those options.
Yeah. So this is like the whole basis of the show, and to get testimonies, because you're quite a unique case. You're someone who grew up, had a very challenging life, persevered and made something of themselves. You were quite what we use the term kumbayaris, meaning like everything is good, this kind of stuff, right? And then at some point something clicked in your mind where you saw an ancient value or a value that of a way to fix a systemic challenge is actually inward.
Yeah.
And that's quite unique. Well, maybe not. Maybe you've come across this. Have you seen it yourself? Have you seen that kind of awakening yourself in the people, or not really?
In myself?
No, as in some friends and family around you. Is that journey? Because for example, if I look at the screen at the moment, right?
Yeah.
I think you can see. In England, let me go that. In England, these are all our politicians. So there's no one. The Black community doesn't really look for the Black politicians. Many they can speak for themselves, but many feel that they don't necessarily represent the Black challenge and struggles. But then when I actually did some research, these are all the Black politicians in England, and they all have European white wives. You see, and white wives and white girlfriends, and even if they're gay, they have a white husband. So this is very consistent. It's like so. This is a pattern. Something's going on here.
I've had
go ahead.
Now, I've had this discussion. I remember just out of college, I was married to my Russian wife, and all of my friends, all my Black friends, and I was talking to my boy, and we were having a conversation about Black women, and he was like, "Well, they're always complaining about Black men dating white women, blah blah." And I was like, "Well, I mean, let's take a look at that, though." I was like, "Look at all of us. Let's say a group of 6. Every one of us but one was married to a white woman, or was with a white woman." And so I was like, is there any? I was like, there's got to be some validity to what they're saying, because we're the cream of the crop, apparently. We all graduated from college, we're all doing well. We're the men that they want, and we're going off the white woman. I was like, and even though I was with a white woman, I could recognize that. Like, I mean, there's some validity there. You can't ignore that.
Right. Now the thing is, you're now with a Haitian sister, and so I can speak openly in the sense of, when I start. So basically, I'm trying to fix Black challenges in all areas of people activity, right? And I have to recognize there's a widespread challenge going on. And sometimes if you talk to individuals, they will always give you the most fantastic story all the time. So they'll say, I was on a beach, I had a t-shirt that said, I love Black women. And then Black people came around, they threw coconuts and my head. They said we hate blackness, and then
Yeah.
from the heavens, an angel came. The angel wings came off, and it was my wife, and she was white. And so the story is, and this is true. I can say fair enough. But what I'm saying is, everyone has these kind of stories, and it's almost like when you go to jail and you go, "Who's innocent?" Everyone goes, "I'm innocent. We're innocent," right? So it's that kind of thing. I'm saying that we have to, regardless of the individual fantastic stories that people claim and might be true, we have to look at the patterns. And because of the patterns, there is a problem. Black women. So in England, we've got the data here, and also in the States, I realize it's the same. When it comes to like app data, we did a show back couple of weeks back, whatever. And what it was is the most, and this is not true, but as in within the hearts of myself and black men. But from the data of the people who use the apps, the most undervalued and ignored was the black woman, right? And I think in America it might have been, there might have been a higher amount Asian and white, and in England it might have similar thing or whatever. I can't remember. Probably. But what I'm saying is, we need to when we practice kumbayarism and benchmark rebranding, and we make this very polite way of pushing stuff, we are affecting our sisters, because this is another controversial statement I'm going to make, but it's very necessary. We find that black women collectively are more intelligent than black men. Yeah. Now, obviously there's individual wonders and stuff.
Collectively, I could go with that.
Yeah, collectively, right?
I could go with that. Collectively, yeah.
So when we start seeing that black women,
I would say make more intelligent choices.
Well, that's correlates with what I'm saying, as in like the black woman in many cultures are the preservers of culture, right? So the black woman understands that in order to have a fine-tuned black family, constructive black woman, constructive black man makes a constructive black family. This concept, but because black men have certain kind of options, certain kind of challenges, certain kind of self-esteem, this doesn't really seem to make sense, or they don't want to make sense, and that's why when you were in your party, everyone would have had a white European or white. And the pattern I want you to observe is in Australia, there was a genocide with the Aboriginal people in the land. They were killed, captured, and enslaved, similar, right? Today, the preference of the Aborigines is European. Native America, they were smallpox, killed, massacred, this kind of stuff, right? Today, the preference of the Native American is the European. You see? Now, you see Jewish people, yeah? They were put in the Holocaust by the German people. The German people is not their preference, not at all. If anything, it's their worst preference. In Germany, the women who actually married as concubines and were with the German soldiers, and this is they're doing what they're doing to survive. Some save, some might have loved, who knows. Despite this, the Jewish people shaved all their hair off.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, I remember.
You see? Today in Palestine, Arabs walk around and stop Palestinian women from, not Palestine, Jewish people walk around and stop Jewish women from being with Palestinian men. It's actually written in the law that you can't do it, apparently, right? And we covered this a few months ago. But what I'm saying is, the reason why I go quite hard at this, or maybe I need to go harder, is, and that's why I'm in these forums, is because I think black men is like the first defense of every people group. So if we don't understand how to make black people and keep wealth in the black community, then we're not building.
Yeah.
And then this challenge that when you were born into in the 80s of challenge will continue. So what happens is black people get their act together, then a new challenge comes. So maybe the act was in the 70s, maybe with the black exploitation movement, this kind of pro-black afros and this kind of stuff, and then crack hit miraculously, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your act together, and now black men love white women. So there always seems to be something, but at the heart of it, black men, and you're probably aware of the diverse community now. I don't know if you heard of them, the diverse community. Have you heard of those?
The diverse community? What do you mean?
Diverse. So there are black women all over.
Oh, divesting.
Yeah.
A black women like kind of pulling away from black men. As in
ignore black men, they're inferior. This kind of stuff,
absolutely. Yeah.
And the reason why I can never really go hard against such concepts is because I feel the ball was dropped by black men, men not making black women feel a certain way and number one in the priority. this is why such things come about. And some of the things women say are very harsh and very strong. But it has
I mean, obviously, some of it obviously comes from hurt, pain,
yes,
their traumas, and I get it. It's hard for me to tell someone how they should feel, especially after seeing generation after generation of Black men letting them down.
Yeah. Now, if we break it, because the challenges that happen in the States is similar to England, pretty much over the world, and that is you have Black men unfortunately murdered by the state. This happens, is never nice, unacceptable. Black men going to jail at a high rate. This is also not good. Unfortunately, many Black men might not be educated. Obviously, there are many people who do this, but we're talking about those who do. And then you have a small few who might do really well, and in certain, maybe basketball, maybe banking, maybe high paid jobs.
Yeah.
But those people, because of the psychological traumas and the branding and all that kind of stuff, are not looking to be Black women. So if Black women are not desired by other racial groups for whatever reason, and there are many challenged Black men who can't be with them, then what do we do? What do Black women do? And that's why a lot of us say that your first priority as a Black man is to protect and provide for a Black woman. First priority.
And honestly, it took me a minute to come to that. I do think the worm is turning culturally, especially for Black men. I think we're holding each other more accountable for things. We're having like real conversations and dialogues. But I completely agree. I think our priorities, like my biggest thing, I say everywhere I am, a Black woman is protected. If I'm in the area, every Black woman around me is protected. I don't care what the situation is. Like one way I got to step in to break it up or get knuckly. I'm not gonna let a Black woman have a hard time. I'm gonna sit watching me, which is good. But and I don't even have. It's not even about being with a Black woman. It's just making sure that you're with me. We're together. We're all together in this. We're all in this together. I don't care if you're from England or you're Jamaican or if you're wherever you're from. We're in this together. So I do believe that we've been dropping the ball seriously, and we need to really.
Yeah, I've seen that all over the world. Now, but what we also try to do is we try to have speech patterns and ways of operating that work in Black people's collective best interests. So, what we try to promote is like normally when I haven't got the document here, but when Black people benchmark, rebranding, and practice kumbaya and this kind of stuff, they'll say things like "love has no color," "my wife, ex-wife, or this wife is beautiful," all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All we say is it's better for us to talk in a way that even if we don't pick a Black woman, empowers Black women. So it says we can say things like, I understand that constructive Black man and constructive Black woman is the best thing for Black people. However, I haven't gone that way. Rather than like a branded kind of like, this woman came from the heavens and she was the most perfect white woman. What I'm saying is, if we can talk with that kind of responsibility, then we can even try to empower Black women, even if we haven't included them for it. I think that this is like a starting thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like just change how we speak to each other. And I think that absolutely. I think it behooves us, especially Black men, to show a lot more patience than we've shown in the conversations with Black women.
Definitely.
Like to really take a step back, not be in our emotions, and like listen to their hurt, listen to their pain, and say, and allow that. If you don't have anything to say, kind of just go with it. Say, okay, you feel this way, and it's valid. There's nothing I can say about that. Even that will change their minds. Even that will make them, maybe second guess. Oh, he's not arguing with me or speaking down to me or arguing his point. He's just listening to me. That alone can do a lot to help change that one person's mind, or have them question their ideas about us.
So I want to show you another video. What's a minute? And what I want to show you is there is a Black man attempted to, because my family's from Jamaica, and the Jamaican Rastas have made it a point to actually mention Black women in songs. Like, I love you. It's a thing. It's an actual thing. Just like country western, they say "I love you, blue eyes and blonde hair." Jamaicans will say "I love you, brown skin," and this kind of thing. But in America, there's a famous two guys and they're talking about a song, and you've probably seen it before. I don't know, but look at what one person tries to do and look at what the other person does when he says it. So quick video.
I like what I'm hearing. You got a track, it's an amazing track in video called Black Woman.
Black Woman, yeah.
All right. Why did you put this out? You know, because I don't know, man. You alienate a lot of women who aren't black.
Right,
you know, so but it seemed like it was directed towards misguided youth and women, or was it to talk about that?
To touch on what you just said, like love to all women, but this is just an ode to, you know, the women that were in my life, the village of women that raised me and like kind of fed me, clothed me, gave me encouraging words to get me through as a kid, because like for me as a youngin, it was like really rough. So all I had was like women outside of my grandfather, who I would go to his house every day and listen to those jazz records and get that, you know, that manly advice. But for the most part, Monday through Friday was all women. You know? So I felt like to not make this kind of record for them, I feel like it took too long to make these records. I just felt like they deserved it.
They deserved it.
They don't get enough respect and enough attention, so.
Yeah, but to the Asian women and the Latino women and the Caucasian women and the Swedish women, German, French women.
Yeah.
Nick Grant loved you too, right? Man, look in the camera. Tell them right there.
Yeah.
Tell them. You know.
We love all the women. Love to all the women.
Okay. Yeah. You would date outside of just black women?
So
would you date outside of black women?
I mean, love is love. I love who I love, but you know, I relate to what kind of put me in position. But, yeah.
Okay. All right. Man.
Right. So I just put it there. Yeah.
You say you try to push the narrative. Yeah.
Yeah. So here was a brother who spent the time to add to follow. Oh, what's it? Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Yeah. So there was a brother who took the time to let me make you big. People, they want to see your face. The ladies say, see, so we go. Yeah. So there was a brother who took the time to make a song to empower black women and show the love of sport. And then the whole sway was very adamant, like, you know, what about everyone? What about love? Now, for me, this is part of a bigger problem, not to highlight the, you know, sway and this kind of stuff, of a collectively inadequate people. Where we've highlighted that black women are going for a challenge. A brother takes the time to try to fix it, and in that time, you talk about people groups who are doing much better. They have all the marketing, or the apps are showing you that all the men are going for them. Make that make sense. Like, how does that make sense? Like, what is going on in the psychology and the back of the mind of black people where that is necessary?
Well, I think one is the inferiority thing. One, I think, and I noticed how he was, you know, guiding and pushing the conversation to accept all people, and it's like we don't have this pride, or we're afraid to have pride in who we are and what we're doing. And it's so directed towards black women, and it's crazy because ain't nobody making any other black people without black women. There's no black people to be made. And that's just the way it is. Like, we need each other to make black people, and black women are the bedrock of whatever we're going to become. And leave it to them, we'll be in the stars. But I think it's a matter of self-esteem. We're afraid to be proud of being black, especially around white people. Like, I'm one of those people. I don't care. I'm black, and if you're my white friend and you don't come hang around with me with my black friends, we're not friends. Simple as that. Like, I'm not going to rock with you. But a lot of people aren't bold enough to, you know, say I'm very black and I'm very proud of who I am. If I'm giving if I'm using my language, no matter where I am, whether I'm giving a presentation in front of a bunch of engineers or contractors, I'm using my language because that's my access to my people. So I think people just have a lack of pride and are afraid to not be accepted because it's going to threaten their bag. It's going to threaten the bag. It's going to threaten their, you know, ability to be accepted. And when you want acceptance because socially, but mostly economically. So I think it's a threat.
Interesting point you said about affecting the bag and this kind of stuff. And this is why having collective networks are necessary, because you've probably seen, like, in England it happens a lot as well, and I saw it happen a few times in America, where maybe a black artist will say something against another group or whatever, and then all their sponsorships shut down, and they control economically. Now, if black people had their own networks, it wouldn't matter, because they'll just take a sponsor from somewhere. I think Kaepernick was a good example, right? He wanted to speak against, and then everything shut down. He hasn't worked since. So this kind of stuff. But I've noticed we actually, great conversation. We've hit the hour mark. So what we can do is, if there's any people in the just to recap, let me actually so everyone knows what we're dealing with. Oh, let me not add that to stream. Hold on, add to stream. There you go. Right. So where's my thing? Yeah. So today's we've got a great guest here. Let me just get to the thing. Good stuff. There we go. So today Brother Payton is our guest, and we're talking about how racial whitening affects Black generational wealth. Brother Payton is a brother who is he's gone through a dynamic. He came from a very hard challenge point in West Philadelphia, born and raised, and that kind of stuff. And
North Philly.
North Philly.
Yeah, North. Yeah.
In North Philly, and brother, his family was the Nation of Islam, but unfortunately the crack epidemic hit the place very hard, and he went on to be educated. He found a Russian wife. They had two daughters, two beautiful daughters. One of the challenges he was talking about is, he will always love his daughters no matter what, but they don't necessarily understand this generational wealth stuff. And one of them is going to potentially marry a European, and within a few generations, everything he's done in that side will go towards the European. And he's also remarried to a Haitian woman who's also quite business-minded, and they share similar values. And we met in a forum talking about generational wealth and how racial whitening could affect it, and how the networks in Black communities are not where it needs to be. And then we are now unpacking why is it that so many Black, especially business-minded, economic structured men are not marrying Black women. And it's a challenge. And in this show, we're going to start a Black Love campaign to directly rectify. We always talk about it. And when people go through this stuff, we want to hear their stuff. So this is the brother who's here now. If anyone would like to ask a question, I get the lack of pride, but Sway, okay, he's just talking about the Sway. Sway sounded personally offended that the brother was hailing up Black women in his song. So one of the sisters is saying that, there are brothers like Sway who seem to be offended that there is a Black man who wants to uphold Black people, which is a problematic stuff. But if anyone's got any questions for Brother Payton, please feel free to ask. Or I'm actually, do you mind if I put the link in the forum, Brother Payton, for people to jump in if they want?
No, yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to either give your example or ask questions, or your views on generational wealth, and maybe you can also talk about the Black mindset and where we might fall short. We definitely want to uphold the 4D values. So if anyone jumps in, we want to let me go back there so people can see it. We want to use discipline, discernment, dignity, and discipline. Discipline, very important one. And we definitely don't want to use derogatory language. Here we have Brother Kel. Brother Kel, for you, Brother Payton, is a regular. He always gives wisdom. So we're going to click in Brother Kel. Welcome, Brother Kel.
How you doing, Brother Raven? How you doing, Brother Payton? It's good to hear our family across the ocean. How you doing, brother?
Always. Much love.
Right. So I don't know how much of the show you caught, Brother Kel, but we're talking about what generational wealth inheriting and how racial whitening could affect that. And we gave some examples about Bruce Lee. No longer his assets is controlled by the Hong Kong or the Chinese communities, now European, and how that goes on. And Brother Payton, we met in a Black Love Instagram page where they were posting images of one Black person with a European and using the hashtag Black Love. And this started us the debate. And then I started talking about generational wealth and how that might destroy that. And then Brother Payton was kind enough in that forum to give me his testimony about what he's going through and how he understands where it comes from.
Okay.
Anything else, brother?
Yeah. I was actually I was driving home and I had it listening. I was coming back from work. I've come back in. I just wanted to ask the brother a question because he said something very interesting, all due respect to him. He was saying that because I think you saying something to do. Your family used to be in the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
And he was saying it was more. They were more focusing on the emotional aspect than the understanding of the strategy behind it. If you could correct me if I'm right or wrong.
Well, I didn't say that, but actually that's exactly how it was. Yeah, like it was definitely about the the execution wasn't there. Because if you know Nation Islam, you know it's not just about the religious aspect of it. It's the empowerment, the economics. Nation Islam more conservative than right. They're all about capitalism and making sure that the man's the head of the household and traditional values and things like that. But it wasn't in my family executed well, and it was definitely more on the pride and I feel good about myself. But the things that needed to be done weren't being done, and there are a number of factors that contributed to that. But yeah.
Okay, because the reason why I mention this is that I myself grew up in a Pan-Africanist household, and me and my siblings, and to be honest with you, brother, it was very, I grew up during the 80s. It was very strange because my parents used to do these types of it was almost as if like wherever you go, you had to be in like a bubble because there's a lot of people with contagious germs, meaning that we had certain family members who weren't Pan-Africanists, so we weren't allowed to be around them more than 1 hour. They would always keep us away from unsynchronized African descendants, as well as non-African descendants and African descendants. So what my question was is that you've got African daughters, right? Due to the fact that you have a genetically dominant reproductive system, as we all have. So would you say that having certain strategies of keeping your daughters, your African daughters, away from certain family members that have, which we all have in our family, that unsynchronized way that seem to focus on colorism, tribalism, and loving non-African people more than loving our culture? Would you say that you will need to implement those types of Pan-Africanist strategies?
Well, it's funny because my daughters, they obviously grew up with their mother, right? But you have to expose them to, opposite or different mindsets at some point. I think that you can't avoid it. I think it's definitely that you want to expose them to people who are like-minded, because you want your value system obviously to be perpetuated. You want them to be proud, so you don't want to have them around someone that's telling them that their dark skin isn't beautiful. You want to keep them away from that, obviously, up until a point where they can get where they're comfortable enough and understand enough about that philosophy of loving yourself as a Black person and practicing self-love and love of other Black people, until they get to the point where they understand that and they own it on themselves, and they can argue and fight against opposing views. I'd say you want to keep them around people, that kind of community that are definitely going to perpetuate that. But at some point, they're going to have to go out and they're going to have to fight that fight. It doesn't matter if you're in a bubble because it's never been challenged. The only time it's yours, the only time that philosophy or knowledge is yours, is when it's been challenged and you've had to examine it and gnaw on it and really understand it. That's when it becomes yours. Because other than that, it's just passed down from someone else and you haven't learned anything. You're just regurgitating. And you have to, wrestle with it on your own. So I do believe, yes, during those formative years, you need to surround them with that kind of community. But at a certain point, they have to go out and they have to go out into the world. And they have to deal with the backlash of that or the challenges to that, so that they own it.
Okay. And I appreciate your answer. Another thing as well is that we are appreciative that you've married the African queen.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, no disrespect, brother, but there's an epidemic of us, going to the other side, instead of the correct side. I was
let me make this clear. Let me make, because obviously without, without having married my ex-wife or anything. Like, my daughters wouldn't be here. Like, I'm good with it, whatever you want to date. Do you? Like, for me personally, it's Black women. But I'm not going to say what's right or wrong for someone to do with their lives, because, you could have run across, 10 Black women, because people are still people at the end of the day. You can look all around, you can find 10 Black women that you've been looking for that, treat you like trash, because, we're all damaged at some point, and find that one white woman or Asian woman that treats you like a king. It's not for me to say, nah, ignore her. You need to still be looking for a Black woman. I can't tell someone in good conscience to do that. So I don't want to say what's right or wrong for someone to do. I just say this is what works for me. I need to be with a Black woman. I need to produce with a Black woman. And I need to build with a Black woman. Or, there's no point to this nation. Like, we're not. Black people are going to disappear. That's just my philosophy.
Okay, so brother, what would you say, right? Because you were speaking about you have a fantastic African queen who's in business as well as yourself. Mm-hmm. So what would you say, right, would be the strategy of helping our African kids to be more stricter by dating? Well, I wouldn't say dating, but marrying synchronized African men in order to help with the flowing of generational wealth, not just to generation, but perhaps till the Creator takes this earth. What would be your, now that you've become enlightened with the passing on generational wealth to our people, what type of strategy would you propose that we should use?
So I think there are micro strategies or micro behaviors and macro behaviors. With our kids now, we talk blackly black about everything. Like, everything Black is beautiful in this house. Every time, like, since my daughter was born, I always talk about how beautiful her brown skin is. I talk to my boys, I talk about them being kings. I talk about, listen, you're a prince. You carry yourself when you walk out the house like a prince. You don't walk out there with your head down. You don't walk down there acting a fool. You're a prince. So having that language and speaking that kind of life into your children from day one, and that kind of pride, they see me kissing their mom. They see me kissing my wife. They see me all up on her, expressing this love. They see me hugging them. They know what it's like for masculine love to engulf them. They know what it's like to see their dad come home every single day, working, getting things done, and being, you say the head of the household. I am the head of my household. My wife is the heart. So everything revolves around her, no matter what. But those micro behaviors give them an image of what we are, and gives them a pride because it makes them feel good. And the macro, you see when they see you interacting with other Black people, when they see you opening businesses, when they see you being financially responsible and having that conversation about, make sure you support other Black people. When something racial happens, explaining to them the situation. You see something on TV, making sure that you have those conversations, and you in those behaviors when you go into businesses or you go into those schools, and they see how you deal with people and how you carry yourself, and you have those conversations about, hey, we're going to be leaving you these businesses. You need to partake. Here, come help your mother. Do these chores or whatever with the business. Those kind of behaviors, I think, perpetuate making sure that they want to be with other Black people and see value and pride in us being together. Because we take our daughters to hair shows where my wife has her boots. We're all there, and they see this is what we're doing. They see a whole bunch of other Black people doing their thing. So I think those micro and macro behaviors are how you teach your kids value in their community.
Thank you, brother. Just before we move on, we have to welcome Empress Kushti, a very important contributor to the broadcast. Welcome, Empress. How's it going?
It's family. How's
How you doing,
everyone?
Queen? I'm good, Queen. How you doing?
Hey.
Now, sister, it'll be good to get your perspective of the show. Just before I forget, if I go silent, just carry on without me. My internet might start cut, so I might use my phone. I don't know. But if so, just carry on as was. But sister, do you have any questions or any perspective you want to put in from what you've been observing so far? You might be muted at the moment, just so you know. Oh,
yeah, you are muted.
You might you're muted, sister. I can unmute you manually, but I don't know if you've done that. I don't think I can.
Hiya, can you hear me better now?
Yeah,
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Because it's coming through a bit robotic. I'm not sure if I'm clear, all right?
No,
You're clear. Yeah, you found clear. There's we can hear like a buzzing noise, but that's like a mosquito, so it doesn't matter. You're coming across quite clear.
Okay. I've got a question for Brother Payton, if that's all right.
Of course.
I noticed that the brother mentioned that he was having a discussion with his two daughters about generational wealth. And I was curious about how concerned he was in regards to where that wealth will be taken to, and how if he believes that his daughters will they think it, if they think it's as important, do they hold that hard line of the importance? Are they worried about that? Do they understand the concern of that? When you're having a discussion with them, how does that go?
I have the discussion about like I haven't had the discussion about like my daughter potentially marrying a white dude and having kids. That's a touchy subject. That's a hard conversation to have because at the end of the day, I do want her to be happy. She's got to make her own decisions in life. It's hers to deal with. I have to make my decisions based on that about my legacy because it is my legacy. But I do have the conversations about generational wealth. I don't think they get it yet because I don't think they haven't come from poverty really. And I don't think they understand ownership yet. Mind you, I just started learning about ownership over the last 7-8 years and started moving towards owning businesses. But I've taken them to see my properties, and I've taken my older daughter to see how I'm looking, when I go search for properties and say, hey, this is, if I buy this property, this is how much I can get out of it. This is how much I make in a month off of this one property. How much money, how many hours do you have to work to make that much money? And try and put it in perspective. Like, mind you, I do nothing. I work 10 hours, maybe even less than that in a month to make this. It's going to take you a lot more time to do that. So I try to get the idea of getting your money to work for you while you're sleeping through to them. And it's going to take time because I wasn't doing it, most of their lives because I didn't know about it. I thought you just go, work a job. And, me having this awakening, it's a process. It's going to take time.
If I could jump in, obviously, and Empress Kushti can follow up. One thing that we show here, and this is why original choice is important, is at certain points we are going to teach what we do. So we're going to do things, and by what we're doing, our offspring and children will see it, and then hopefully recreate it. When we marry outside our community, it becomes even more challenging to tell your offspring what to do the same thing, because they go, "Oh, you did," and that's one of the challenges you might find. I don't know. I wasn't there.
No, yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things I have to tread lightly on because what am I going to say? Hey, don't get with white people. Like if that was the case, you wouldn't have existed. So I have to tread it lightly. I can't. Listen, your mother's a white person. I can't say, all white people are evil. It's a woman that gave you life and you love her dearly. So it's a complicated conversation to have, and there's no easy answer to that, to be honest. Like, it's just, I'll show what I do. If they choose to follow it, they choose to, or take pieces from it. But, they've seen over the last few years that, more than the last few years that you know, that this is the direction I'm going in, is a direction that works for me, you know, as a black man, black woman.
And another thing that you highlighted, that you found this information about, like, you know, the financial literacy and generational wealth and this kind of stuff, in your late 30s.
Say that again.
You found about this new way of operating in your late 30s. Like, this is when it really, right. So not too long ago at all, really.
Yeah.
So and that's another thing. Like, there's many things that we're not telling our children in their young ages, and by the time we do, they might have already made choices that might make these things even more challenging. You see. Welcome back, Empress Kushti. I know you disconnected, but you're back. Did you want to follow up with a follow-up question, Empress? Was that enough for you? Did you have anything else?
Yeah. So I barely got to hear any of that because I don't know. It's just getting really bad signal. But I just kind of gathered you were just saying that you're just teaching them the principle of just generating wealth.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, basically how to look at money differently. I can't, like I said, and one of the things that we were talking about is, like, it's hard for me to say about who they should marry, because, you know, for me to say, hey, you should marry a white guy. Find yourself a good black man, you know, have some black babies, keep us going because you black. At the end of the day, let's, you know, reintroduce you, or let's reintroduce who you are into the community, because we need you. We need your wealth. We need your intelligence. We need your creativity. We need your heart. We need your passion. We need you here. It's hard for me to say that when she's the very product of me doing what she's doing. You know, without her, without me doing what I did, she wouldn't exist. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, don't be with that white dude. I made my little comments, like, you know, but at the end of the day, I do want my children to be happy, you know, and find their joy with whoever they're going to find it with. I have my preference, though, you know, but it's not my life at the same time.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense.
Brother Payton.
Yeah.
I've noticed, right, growing up, that Pan-Africanism was birthed in the United States, you know, and you know, there's a lot of the forefathers there, as well as the one who reinvented Pan-Africanism, the Honorable Marcus Garvey. What I was wondering was, what is it about us in the diaspora that we've had these amazing men, African Pan-Africanist males and females, that has set down blueprint strategies for us to navigate and keep away from those who abuse us verbally and physically? What is it that makes us ignore these types of principles and still persist in marrying out of our race, as well as building no institutions for our youngsters? Why do you think we keep going backwards and forwards, even though a blueprint has been laid out? What is it that you believe that prevents us from this generational wealth when we've been showing? I mean, you've got the likes of Dr. Claude Anderson, a great Pan-Africanist, as well as the blueprint of economics. What is it that turns us away from these heroes that's died for us and laid down the foundation?
I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. I mean, I think there's a lot of fear of going out on our own. You know, we've been told, you know, for centuries, let's call it what it is, for centuries, that we aren't good enough, that, you know, we're not smart enough, that we need them to succeed. And I think that mentality is pervasive. Even though I think it's changing right now, I think that mentality is pervasive, and it keeps people afraid from believing your own. It's like when a black person tells you something that's beneficial to you, a lot of us don't listen. But if a white person tells you, you know, and he has those letters or whatever, and the black person has the same letters, we're more apt to listen. It's that mindset that, you know, we aren't good enough to do these things, blueprint or not. Like, you can have the biggest blueprint in the world, but unless you kind of go on a leap of faith and follow the blueprint, you don't know it works. You won't know that it works until you do it. And most people are afraid, and we won't have that faith in each other to say, you know, let me go buy from this black business. You know, how many times have you heard it? Oh, I tried to buy from a black business, but the customer service was bad, so I stopped. I'm like, yeah, there are 100 other black businesses. You don't stop buying from white people in general because one company was bad. Why are you not no longer buying from black people because one experience was bad? So I think we already have this mindset of we're not good enough and that we're inferior, and a lot of people hold that, and it keeps us from believing in the things that we can accomplish. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I think at the end of it, the crux of it is that we've had a mental game played on us that keeps us back. Although I do think the culture's changing. I think the mentality is changing vastly, especially with social media.
What was your before? So your wife, was she born in Haiti and moved here, or is she from second generation?
Second generation, yeah. She's she's second generation. Yeah, her mom was born in Haiti, moved here.
Right. And do you find are you close to that family or not?
No, everyone's great. Yeah.
And do you see that? Do you feel that they have that family particularly? Are they more? Do they have any kind of black empowerment concepts, or they're just existing? And
it's funny. I mean, I not particularly. I mean, you got a lot. Like it's, you have some aspects that have that traditional, but that Caribbean, that brainwashing, light skin is better kind of, you see across the diaspora. You see some of them are, are very black empowered. It varies just as much as anything across any strata.
Do you feel that if you had been a white man and your Haitian wife married you, would that have been an issue in the family? Not so much.
That's a good question. I don't. It's just the wildest thing. I can't see it happen. There's not a single white person I've seen in that family anywhere. And although I don't get that impression from them, there's no reason I would, because it's a non-issue. I mean, I think it might. I don't know. Maybe that might be a thing. Like, who's this white boy? But
yeah, I mean, obviously the Haitian Revolution is inspirational, historical event that spearheaded many, revolutions all around the diaspora. And I'm not from a Haitian background, but I would like to think that spirit is in many Haitian families, and that story being taught of what they went through and how they were the first and only to win in that revolution, in that revolt. But
you got to remember too, though, they also still are suffering under.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, so it's like
now, as we were going to cover it. We were going to cover the ironies, and this is something that we were going to cover, where you have you're in America, you see, where people from Afghanistan are being welcomed in as refugees from their crisis, but the Haitians are being turned back from their two crises, and I think this is why we have these concepts. I don't know if I can. This one concept that we push here is this one collectively. Very important word. Black people have no friends, and the reason why this really is effective and necessary, that I feel at least, is by understanding that it allows people to focus inwards.
Yeah.
And all these Haitians being beaten with whips that we've never seen before, people on horseback, and Afghanistan's being helped in. Afghanistan was in war with America, this kind of stuff. Haitians wasn't, as far as we're aware. All this is case studies and data that we would want to build together to put the campaign that collectively black people have no friends, and because of that truth, it should allow us to actually practice black love, have generational wealth, because whenever people want to talk about why they don't want to marry black people, rather than us telling a very good story that is true or not true, I think what might be more effective and better for black people collectively is to say, well, collectively black people have no friends, and that's something on a campaign level where actually the truth in that statement, that no matter where we look, it seems that if you're, I don't know, you're in America, I don't know if it was told you, but here many black parents tell their children that when you go out and you get a job or you try to do something, you might have to work twice as hard as everyone else.
Yeah, yeah, that's the correct. Yeah, twice as good to be half as good.
Okay, there you go. So
it's hard to get half the benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. So this concept seems to go all around the diaspora, and I'm saying at a certain point, the conversation has to go inwards. Like, what are we going to do, and how strict are we going to be when delivering? So that's why we try to give methods of speaking that work in black people's best interest.
Yeah.
But love has no color. Doesn't work for black people. Unless
does not benefit us. No.
No. Unless we say, oh yes, but black love has a color, and so we have to have ways of speaking and ways of operating that empowers black people when we speak. And obviously, the Black Love campaign is important because, as we've admitted, unfortunately, historically, many black men have dropped the baton, and they're even in there. Like we just saw the video with Brother Sway there. There's like this chip, this subservient chip that gets triggered. That as soon as an empowerment thing happens, the subservient chip comes in, and we have to be inclusive. Yeah. There's a place called Speaker's Corner in England. It's where people go to debate these topics. I used to go there before the COVID, and one thing I found is every time I would talk about black empowerment, the subservient chip would be triggered. And they will come forward and try to go, we have to help non-black people. We must include white people. We must give them our wealth, this kind of stuff. Not realizing that white people will be okay without us.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's funny. It's like you said a couple things. One of them was I had this conversation with some of my white friends when we're talking about racism and how I said I'm fed up. I'm not having these conversations with white people anymore, and they're like, well, why? You have to help. I'm like, I don't have to do anything. I was like, I've come to the point where I said, racism is white people's problem. That's not my problem. Y'all need to fix this. My focus is on black people. I remember being at that point where I was like, oh, if I talk to enough white people or I show them, my humanity, and I got to the point I was like, no, I'm not. It's not my responsibility to fix this. You created it. You fix it. I'm going to focus on my people and, making sure we're good. I don't care about your country. I care about black people. If there's nothing your political process is going to do for black people, I don't want anything to do with it. It's wasting my time. So, and when you say collectively have no friends, that I 100% agree with. We need to look out for each other. We need to look out for ourselves. No one is going to do it for it because they haven't. And when I say that, I'm like, look at history. Like you have to look at history. If you didn't want these things to happen, they wouldn't be happening all across the world.
Yeah,
they keep happening. So you can't speak about humanity. Yeah, you can't speak to me about humanity without talking about history.
I'm glad you said it because we're going to try within this broadcast. We're trying to influence people to make broadcasts based upon black betterment, which is black people helping black people with black issues. And the reason why we talk about the lifestyle of black betterment is a verbal combat for whenever the subservient chip is triggered. And what the diagram we break down is within non-black people there is a confusion chip, and within black people there's a subservient chip. And whenever black people talk about empowerment, unfortunately, sometimes you see a non-black person enter the conversation, and then it triggers their confusion chip. And when that confusion chip is pushed, then the subservient chip seems to really register very fast. Within the video we showed, Sway had that subservient chip. Something was said from a black person, not a white person, that made him go, "We must include everyone. Like black women don't deserve this. Everyone deserves this." And as you know, if black women are here and white women are here, if you move them at the same pace, that's what's going to happen, right? You're not gonna really get that. Something you said also that I want to add to is about talking to non-black people, white people about racism. I think Neely Fuller Jr. says it really well, where actually it's white people who should be talking to us about racism because they're the masters of it, right? So white supremacy, racism, they should tell us because there's conversations that go on in rooms where black people are in there that we don't know because we're not there. So we wouldn't know. Yeah. But you're correct in saying the focus of black people should be, as other people do themselves, fixing black issues. And hence why, and this is the final thought before I don't, I put black betterment as a lifestyle. So veganism is a lifestyle, right? And the lifestyle of veganism is you do not eat or kill animals. If you eat or kill animals, it has nothing to do with veganism. Black betterment is black people helping black people. If you ever include anyone else in that equation, it is no longer black betterment. It's something else. Kumbaya, a new term.
Yeah,
Different
term. Yeah.
So that way, when we have a conversation, we can say this conversation is about black betterment, and that means something. It has a rules, and that way it helpfully minimizes the confusion that will be added. And now, just so you know, we're adding a new speaker. Welcome, Teddy, to the show.
Hello.
Hello, Teddy.
I came here before, like I'll say 6 months ago.
Oh, welcome
Steve.
back.
Yeah, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Basically, I was 19 years old before, but now I'm 20. You might not remember me.
I do. Yeah, yeah. Happy birthday. And we were interested because we're definitely trying to extend and find out how the youth and the younger generation interpret certain things and how the challenges they go through, so we can try to. Because one of the problems in our generation and before is there was disconnect. So with the disconnect, people found themselves on their own. And Brother Payton is one of those guys where he had to work out things for his own, and by the time he hit his late 30s, he realized solutions that might be more in his collective best interests, and he's trying to fix the best he can with what he has now to correct some of those, you wouldn't say mistakes, but just things that weren't necessarily in black people's collective interest, ideas. So, Brother Teddy, do you have any questions at all about anything? You're a guest, so you can always ask questions.
Basically, see, the thing is, so I see him like for my generation right now, we do have like a lot of pro-blacks now in the community so far. A lot of pro-blacks. However, I can't lie to you. At the same time, we do have we call it the queen elements are still rising slowly. So we have like the black empowerment people, but then we have the queen elements, if you know what I mean. So they're becoming a problem as well, because we're always trying to talk about black empowerment in our generation. You have some kids be like, oh, that's racist, oh, blah blah blah, oh, but there is some good white people. I'm like, oh, so like it's very hard. I think it could be done in our generation, my generation. However, there's still some white ass kisses, so I don't know yet.
Well, let me jump in. So what I would say is this: before you jumped in, we were talking about two concepts, right? And the concept was laying dormant in every single black person, unfortunately, is a subservientship, and laying dormant in every single non-black person. This is like a symbolic way of thinking of things. I'm trying to push this right. Is a confusion trip, right? And what happens anytime something is said about black empowerment? A European or a non-black person can come into the conversation and vibrate and make our subservientship come up. We feel we have to please everyone, and this is what you're seeing when you're seeing what you're. I mean, I would say we try not to use name calling here. We use the term unsynchronized. The reason is because when some of these people might come on the show, and if we use certain terms, then it's no longer about solutions; it's about how you feel about the words being used. So we say unsynchronized with black betterment.
Oh, sorry. I'm very sorry.
And I'm saying, if you ever go to a public debate place, the terms that we use here might help you be able to find a conclusion, because what you tend to find, many times we speak to unsynchronized brothers and sisters, it becomes about how they feel about what we say rather than the inadequacies in what they're saying, and how it doesn't benefit black people collectively. So this is what we try to give you. But your opinions and stuff is important. So what I would say to you is, here's what I would do, and here's what I do. Try to define the conversation. So when a person comes and goes, brother, this topic is about black betterment. Yeah, it's about the need of black people to come together to work on solutions and to make a better tomorrow. But here's where people find it very difficult. The next thing I push, which I would recommend, and some people don't like saying this, but I reckon it's very effective, is to start the conversation by saying, unfortunately, currently, black people are collectively inadequate. And the reason why that's important is, if I was a person and I stood up and I said, I feel I'm ugly, but I'm trying to strive to be pretty. If everyone just said, yeah, you are ugly, then it highlights that the error is coming from the other people, So we've identified a challenge, meaning we're not working as a good team, and because of it, we're far behind. right? So because that's where you start the conversation. If someone else comes in, the pressure's on them to make everyone feel like this guy must be completely in his own world, because they've really started saying that they've recognized a challenge and they need to actually work on it. And if the challenge is not being able to work as a team, that is what you're trying to fix. That is one thing. That's what I do when I public debate, and I find it quite effective.
And also, what do you call it? There's a guy in America I listen to. His name's called the Black Authority, Jason Black. He always talks about building like an economic base. And people like my generation, we are talking about opening businesses and so on and so on, so we can employ each other, if you know what I mean. So because one important thing you have to do is like create like an economic base. Like for example, we need like at least like one black bank in the UK, but we don't have one so far. I might be wrong, but do we have like a black bank yet? We don't.
Not in the UK. What there is actually African banks. So there's African banks, and I know there's African American banks. I think there's the two unite. I forgot the name.
There's a few.
The two came together, and I know there's banks from Ghana, Nigeria, and this kind of places in there. So there's one thing, but you're correct. Funny enough, one of the projects that I'm a UI designer, and I make bank apps. That's what I do. So one of the things
that's good.
Yeah. So what irony, right? But with me, these projects I'm on, they take 2 years. They take 2 years, and there's like 250 people funded money every day that the bank has funded, right? And the bank have a big budget. So what I've been doing is I've been collating many black people's numbers and people who synchronize with, what we're about, and the idea is to make digital products that better serve black people. Now, for me, the banking app is the hardest one to achieve. Right now, the first one that I would try to produce is networking apps, meaning if you go to a city or a town and you wanted to network with black people, you can pull up an app and you could get every single black business and black establishment in that particular place, and you can go and shop there. Just a way to connect. Right now, I run a network called Mount Melanin, and they network on social apps. And basically, anytime someone needs something, they go in the group and they say, "Does anyone do this?" Some people can say yes or no. The next step for that is to actually have an app outside of mainstream apps, whatever, and create an actual black-owned app on the back server that is dedicated for black people to find black people. So, because obviously the black community is spread. Brother Payton is in the States. Brother Cal might be outside London. Who knows, right? But wherever we are, there is a way we can benefit. And then obviously you have shipping and this kind of stuff to ship people goods. And just this at this point, connecting with black people is important. One other thing before I let the other jump in, there is a value in only being around black people. So when you join these forums and you go to certain even physical events, just being around black people is a different energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Oh man.
Yeah, brother Payton.
Oh, listen, we just moved to Dallas from Massachusetts for that very reason. Like I moved there because my daughter was in going to high school, and I was like, I need to, be there, because she was going to a boarding school, and I was like, I just want to, make sure I'm close to her. And she graduated, and once we dropped her off at college, we literally were going the next week because it's like we need to be around more black people, and we want to be in a community where we're building, where we put the roots down, we can build something. Because I have some other businesses that I want to open, but I don't want to open them here. I want to open them around black people, and I want to be plugged in with black people and within my community before I actually start this part of my economic journey. So I completely agree. Like there's a different energy when I'm around all black people and you're in an all black environment. You're breathing easier. Like the energy, you're in there with Cocoa Brother and Shea, Cocoa Brother and Shea Brother. It's just a beautiful energy, and I love it. Like I breathe it in. I remember when I first moved from these small towns, Central PA, where it was mostly white people, to Chicago. Listen, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was like, look at all these sisters here. Like, just the variety of black women and black men going, and they were readily accessible. Was just it brought so much joy to my heart. So yeah, it's a whole different energy when you're around a bunch of black people. My wife and I both say the same thing. We can't wait to get more plugged in Dallas and just be around our people.
I have a question because in America, what do you call it? Apparently, the black American females, they look at themselves as a different group from black men. Is it true?
Not all. I mean, you can't. It's hard to make a sweeping indictment on anybody. But there's a group of black women that are pretty much fed up with black men. You know, we were talking about it earlier. We were talking about the divesting.
Yeah, I had it. I swear to God,
seriously,
there's something called Divested Zealot. I followed this woman. See, and also, the worst thing about it is, when I listen to them on YouTube, there's UK girls jumping in as well. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? There's literally UK girls drilling in this divestment movement. That's what I was about to say as well. So, like I'll be real. Like, everything this divestment, I found about this divestment movement. You see black women that have non-black men with non-black thing. I look at them very different now. Like, you know, I've looked to myself like, hey, she could be like a sellout, so I have to be careful what I say next to her. You know what I mean? Because ever since I found out this divestment movement, I'm like, what's going on? Because girls from the UK are even joining in. I'm like, what are we doing? Like it's just crazy. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
But I think in this with that, I think instead of immediately saying it's crazy, I think take a step back and ask why. Because their pain and their anger isn't just one generation; it's several generations. And mind you, there are plenty of black women that are bigging up black men out there. Like, the ones that are hurt the most though are usually screaming the loudest, so they have the loudest voices. I don't think they're nearly as numerous as, you know, their voices.
No, but brother, with all due respect, brother, they are dangerous because I remember I was watching Tariq Nasheed and he was playing a video of one divestment talking to like a police officer saying, blah blah blah. So like, and also if you listen to the chats, they literally hate us. And the thing that bothers me the most, for the UK girls, why are black men done in the UK to make them that angry? They're not even angry. They're just like full on sellouts. Saying, let's see a black man. I just avoid them. Like, look at them. What's going on?
Okay, let's think about that. You're speaking from a logical perspective. When you're talking about hurt, you're talking about feelings. All right. If you're talking about feelings, everything is going to be logical. And I think if you aren't emotionally invested in that conversation or the way they are hurt, it's on you to insert the logic and step back and listen and remove the emotion from your ears and listen to what they're saying, because it's not that they're necessarily right. It's that they feel very strongly about it. And you have to see their perspective and put yourself in their shoes. Like I was the same way. I'm not even going to front. I would see that and I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, this makes no sense. Is, you know, like, black men only want white women. I'm like, well, more than 80% of black men marry black women. Like, what are you talking about? You know, but that's logical. We're talking about women that are actually hurt and have good reason to feel let down from black. We haven't been, but give me a second. We haven't been protecting, like, historically, we haven't been protecting our women. Every man does that, but we haven't been in position to protect our women. We've had to stand by and watch them be raped on a generational basis. We're not just talking about this happened once, but this happened culturally for centuries. So a lot of their faith is eroded in us, and we as men have to build that back up. It's our responsibility. We can't put that on them. Like, they're going to be angry, but the only way we can mitigate that is by showing that we're willing to step up. We have to take the lead and not be in our feelings and say, what do I need to do to help you? You know, I'm not saying give everything you got. I'm just saying take the lead and do the thing that's hard and the difficult thing.
Sorry.
Let me jump in, bro, because Teddy, very good point. And just so you know, we will be tackling the divesting community soon and this kind of stuff. But I think Brother Payton gave some very good advice, and it correlates with what I'm saying. It's probably best to analyze the domino effect of why it has happened, and then we have to ask the question. You know, men haven't been building and protecting, black men haven't been building and protecting at collective rape, and we covered many before about the ratio in certain communities of available black men, and then when you go down the pool, and then you have the most high earning black men not necessarily looking inwards for wives. This has a knock-on effect, a very bad knock-on effect. And then the one we haven't tackled, which is really the real creation of it, is the self-hating black man and how the self-hating black man openly communicates and talks to the black woman. That if you look at the testimonies of each person, they all have testimonies of being paying the pain from the hands of a person that they would trust the most. You see, and that's what that's where the black love comes, Teddy. That's what, rather than focus on the women who have this kind of reaction to black men, let's focus on the black men that create that, fix that, and then we can go there to say, oh, here's what we fix and we'll build, and hopefully, this is what sometimes you have to be a man and hold your hands up and go, yeah, collectively we have to be working on as a team.
Because at the end of the day, you can't fix this. You can't say I'm gonna fix you. You got, like, if you see there's a problem, okay, say the problem has five things that you have to attack. The things that you can fix are the things that you're in control of. So you have to focus inward if there's a problem to be fixed first. Okay, and when you fix that, other things will adjust, other things will change, and the way other people react to you will change. Like, you ever change something about yourself and how people dealt with you changed? Have you ever been through that, like where you were a person at this point juncture in your life and you changed things about yourself and you saw how everyone else's reactions to you changed along with that evolution? It's the same exact thing. Like, if I come to you, if I approach a woman, or we approaching women in a certain way that's maybe disrespectful, and then you change and you approach them in a different way, their reactions to you are going to be like night and day. So we have to focus on ourselves first, get our stuff together, and then present to these sisters that have lost faith in us.
Man, just before you jump in, 1 second, Ted, say this and you can jump in. Sister Kushti, you can always join if you like. I think she was given a space for the men to speak. But sisters, you're always welcome to join in, and you will be put to the front of the line, especially if we're talking about pain sisters go through. You will be able to speak much more accurate than us and clear, and your voice is necessary. So if the sisters want to jump in and have a say, don't feel that it's a man talk. You're welcome, and we want to listen and learn, so you're always welcome. But sorry about that, Teddy. Carry on for your thing. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
But the thing is, see for the American divestors, I do listen to them. I can't lie to you. A lot of them have been molested by cousins or by that stepfathers, blah blah blah. A lot of them have been molested, so I can see the hatred from there. But the UK girls, when I listen to them talk about divestment, they're just saying, I just want a white man. I just want a white man. The UK girls not from pain. The UK girls just for the fact they want to sell out, and I'm like, okay. And another argument that the ones from the UK say about divestment, say this is what they say black men don't earn enough money, blah blah blah. But the thing is, when I see them in real life in interracial couples, the white man's a working class man. So see the argument, it just died. Like, see the so-called argument. It's just stupidity. In fact, I remember one time I was working with some white man who was married to a black woman. The black woman made 4 times as much money as he makes, and he was a janitor and she was a lobbyist. Beautiful sister, and he's married to this white man. So I'll be real. When it comes to the UK ones, it's not from a place of pain. Cause I've been listening to them for a long time now. They're not talking about molestation. They're not talking about anything else. They just want to have a white guy or a non-black person just to say have a non-black person. So when I see one of them, I look at them as like, okay, she might be an enemy, so let me be careful what I say to her, blah blah blah. But still, like.
I know, but I can sense the pain. I can sense the pain.
When you say protect black women, like, what do you mean, brother? Well, like, what do you mean, brother? Because in the UK, we're not doing nothing crazy is happening in the UK. In America, I can see, but in the UK, brother,
it's just the thing is, brother. Let me just jump in. The thing is, there has been a hit. So there's a few campaigns that are starting to protect black women, and before you were born, there has been some incidents in the UK community where certain men were very abusive, very, very. I don't want to say systematically, but they evaded many detection and had like very predatory kind of behaviors. And there are campaigns now to get those men taken away, and how widespread a few men have. And this is what's happening. So there is, and we definitely. I'm going to add Sister Kush to the thing. We definitely want to listen to the sisters, hear what they're saying, and respond accordingly. And we invite any sisters who are divestors who have had hardship through black men to come on the show, and let's talk about it. And we want to give you space. But just to put a pin in that, Empress Kushti, you're here. Do you have any questions? Because your opinions matter.
Yes, I've had a question, but I do want to touch base on what the brother just said about UK sisters are just a sellout. If there was a white man, I just think that that's just a bit of a broad way to paint it, because historically in Britain, black men have been dating outside of their race the whole time, and you don't tend to hear brothers just do a blank statement like that. And to think that they're not going through some form of abuse is, again, I don't think that that's correct to think that either. There's been a lot of trauma. The trauma is not just explicit to the Americans. Black women in the UK face a lot of trauma. If you just look at the black artists, the male artists, and how they talk about their own black women, I mean, it says it for itself. So I think there's a lot deeper reasons why black women, especially now, are moving towards the other side. And I don't think it's just because they want to be a sellout, because for the longest time, especially in Britain, and the history of black women in Britain who have led the charge, set up organisations, helped meetings, everything else is just one that's not been matched, especially from black males. So we need to tread carefully how we talk about our women in general, and especially in the UK. Because if you don't want them to be turning off and going to another side, the last thing you want to do is just blanket them, brush, and just say that they're sellouts.
Thank you.
We need to delve a bit deeper in it.
Sorry for that. Sorry, sister. But also, sister, just by the way, sister, you know, the men, even when the men that they are the race, I look at them the same sister. I don't really know who people can see. If a black man that decides to go with a white man, I mean a white woman, I look at him the same way as a black woman going out with a white man. So I'm very pro black, if you know what I'm trying to say. So I look at them as the same thing.
Let me just go ahead, sister.
That's okay. I understand what you're saying there, but then you're saying that this new age, which I do agree that it's relatively new. When you see a black woman do it, it's just a blanket brush that she just decided out of all this time. She just woke up and decided to be self-hating and a sellout. There has to be underlying reasons for that. And as black men, brothers, potential partners, it should want those black men to dig deeper and delve why, and tread a bit lightly when they're talking about women, because the way men speak to men is one way, and the way a man speaks to a woman or about women should be a different way. And if we're noticing that they're going the other side and we don't like it, and it's not in their history to typically do that, although that's not the same with our brothers, there needs to be a reasoning to why. I agree that the way it's happening in America, and sometimes with the black community, blacks tend to set the trend sometimes. So perhaps, yeah, they're getting influenced by them, but maybe they're hearing a lot of realities that they're seeing in their own lives as well. And because they're not seeing any other options or any other support or anyone highlighting a better way or any brothers representing in a different way, maths, that could be one of the potentials why. So all I'm saying is we need to tread lightly when it comes to our sisters, because regardless what country it is, black women are constantly disrespected. And if you feel like you're constantly disrespected, or you feel that you're not protected, sooner or later you're just going to give up the fight, whatever that way that give up fight looks like. And it's up to the brothers to stand up and take the lead, as they should do on that.
I think, can I chime in on that? I love what you said, and you said a couple things when you just get tired. Black women killing it, right? At this point in history, black women are killing it. They're the worst thing for the sorry brothers that don't know what they're doing is that for black women that know their value. When black women started learning their value and started saying, "Oh, they got it going on," there's only so much you're gonna put up with, and it's on us to step up. That's what it comes down to. We have to step up. We have to do the difficult thing. We don't. Between black men and black women, historically, we've eroded the communication between us. We don't know how to speak to each other. If you're not seeing that male-female interaction, that mother-father interaction that's respectful and caring and loving, you're not growing up seeing that generation after generation, there's a whole subset or set of skills that you miss out on communicating with your other half. And whether you're in a relationship or not, whether I'm talking to a stranger who happens to be a Black woman or not, there's a certain level of communication and respect that I'm missing because I haven't seen it. And I honestly have to learn it. And it takes a lot for, you know, as a dude, as a man, to pull back, step back, pull your ego back, and listen and learn, because, you know, we have our ego, we have our bravado, but we have to learn to communicate to our women and listen foremost, because that communication is going to take a lot of listening, and it's going to take one of us to shut up and listen, and that's the person that's going to lead. The person that is quiet and listens, that's the person that's taking the lead, because now they understand both perspectives. They're putting themselves in both perspectives instead of trying to win the argument.
Do you mean like Kevin Samuels? Like, mean like Kevin Samuels or no?
No, he's on something different. Kevin Samuels on something different.
Brother Teddy.
Yes, brother.
I have a question for you, right? There is something that I do agree with you in regards to.
We can hear you, Sis Empress. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
There was something that I do agree with you, Brother Teddy, in regards to. I have noticed, and it's no different than in my generation before that. A lot of the youth are becoming very Pan-Africanized, and they're starting to be tuned in focus on Black businesses. No different in ancient in Africa, that the elders would always pass down the knowledge and always encourage the youth to, you know, follow up things that we can't no longer do anymore. But my question is for you is that because of this amazing influence of the youth, right, integration is starting to become a weapon for this pro-Black Pan-Africanist movement. So my question for you is, how, as a you know, an adult, because you're in your 20s, right, how would you deal with the integration of the urban music, i.e. grime and etc., that allows the non-Africans to intercede with the pro-Black movement of Generation Wealth? What would you
hate it. I completely hate it. I completely hate it, brother. Brother, like, I remember seeing on that I'm Just Bait, or like an Instagram page. It was a white boy who was singing Afrobeats, and nobody had a problem with it. Some people spoke up about it, but like I just hate it because I see us as Black people, we have to control our culture. Let's say the culture and also the economics as well, because we see on grime. Let's say on grime, I mean economically as well. He like for example, the producer is Black. The owner of the company is Black, if you know what I mean. Like, we control the whole thing, and we should not integrate all. Integration was the worst thing that ever happened to Black people, especially in America. Integration was the worst thing that ever happened. So, see, for me, we should not integrate at all. And if a white boy wants to come inside the culture, there's going to be regulations, and there's going to be a fee for that. If you know what I'm trying to say, we're not going to let you go open arms. Like, no, you shouldn't. Like, to be honest, like, you shouldn't even be doing it, because no in hell, me as a Black person, can go into Bollywood. The Indians will shut that down immediately. Even if I can sing that, they will shut it down. So in my opinion, no. It's only Black people are doing it. Some people say that might be racist, that might be too far. But I'll be able to tell them this. Have you ever seen a Black person in Chinese culture singing? Or a black person in Indian culture singing? They'll never allow it. Only we allow it. But personally, no. We should shut it off. We should keep it for Black people only. You can go to concerts, you can buy the things, but come and be like, to participate, to singing, no. I think it's too far, but that's just me.
No, I hear what you're saying, bro. But what I would say though, the best way to probably get around that, it isn't necessarily to block people from performing, because you normally can't do that. What you can do though is you can actually like create industries and have ownership. So music is an industry. You can actually own the record labels, you can sign the acts, you can put out the music, and the benefit of doing that as well is you are then you're picking a type of content that's being released to the masses. So then you can actually really try to add betterment in your content. So, for example, if you look at BET in America, they said that when they sold the two, it was a husband and wife ownership, when they sold it to a European company, another company, that's when you started seeing many anti-black kind of products that you wouldn't necessarily saw in the actual BET Pride and selling. And I went to Washington in America in March, in the A Million Man March, the latest one, and it wasn't covered by any channel, but it was covered by BET in '95, but it wasn't covered in the latest one. So this is what I'm saying. This is why getting everyone on code and ownership is a way to tackle outsiders coming in. But just so you know, Empress Kushti, we're coming to the end of the show, and Brother Payton's been there for 2 hours and done an amazing job. But because Empress Kushti, the mic's been not working, we're going to let her have the final say in that answer question, and then we're going to wrap.
Can I touch to that, the economic part?
Go ahead.
Hang on. So I just wanted to, like, before we move to this last thing up. So Teddy, for me, there's the idea of economic empowerment, right? But that doesn't just mean the black dollar. Okay, that means we harness our black dollar, yes, but it also means we collect everybody else's dollar. Like, white people aren't just trying to get white dollars; they're getting our dollars, they're getting Asian dollars, they're getting, Dominican dollars. They're getting all the dollars they can. And I think it would sell us short to simply focus on us getting our own money. We want everybody's money. Like, I'm on that as well. I have a story where I was I went through this property that was in this apartment building I wanted to buy, and the dude had a swastika sign up, and my boy was like, "Oh no, I don't, this is no good." And I was like, I don't care. Did he pay his rent on time? I was like, his rent is going to pay for my black excellence. My kids are going to go to college on his dime. His hatred of me is still going to fuel my generational wealth. I don't care. You can hate me all you want. Same thing with white. They don't care whether we like them or not. They don't care. There's no component that's morally right or wrong about the dollar bill. They're going to take our money no matter how we feel about him. I could care less. I'm like, do what you want, but at the end of the day, you're putting my kids through college. That's the biggest spit in the face I can name. Like, your hatred is funding black excellence. I'm good with that. So the emotional component for me is, yeah, I'm going to take that dollar. I'm going to put it to work in my community for something good. But we need to understand that it's not just about the black dollar. It's bigger than that. It's more controlling our assets, letting them participate by our standards, by what we decide is going to be is good. But not necessarily just shunning them 100%. This is not about integration. This is about, like, economics too.
Yeah. So, sorry, brother. Basically, what you just said. That's what I meant in the beginning. That's what I meant. Because I remember I listened to the Black Authority, Jason Black, a lot, and he also talks about we start open businesses, but we have to control it. And also to aggregate the businesses. Like, for example, like, we need to have, like, our own Chinatown. Non-Chinese people go to Chinatown and they buy stuff. But in the UK, we need to do that. We need to have, like, our own Chinatown as well. And same thing in America, you need to have your own Chinatown. Because the thing is, people love black culture. However, we don't control it. So they're gonna buy it either way. Like, white people will buy it because they like black culture. But the thing is, we have to control it. Because remember, Jason Black would say that you always need like an economic base. You always need to control your culture. If you control it, then things will change. So yeah.
So let me just add, brother. Let me just add this, Cal. I'd say, well done to brother Teddy, who came in, because we want to hear this kind of talk from the youth, and we invite many more people of his same age group to jump in and to follow the same patterns of what he's listening to, and getting him synchronized with Betterment and Pan-Africanism and B1ism and this kind of stuff. Very important, because that's how change is going to happen. But we are at the end of the show now. So, Brother Cal, if you could ask your final question, and then Brother Payton, if you could just give your final thoughts. And then, just so you know, moving forward, you're all welcome to come back next week. And if you ever wanted to open a show about a topic, just give me advice, give me an advance, and I can set it up. As well as, you can always jump in on the aftermath to join in on it like now for any kind of question. Everyone's welcome. But Brother Cal, ask your thing, then we'll go to Brother Payton to see us through.
I was going to say to Brother Teddy is that, you know, I would like if Brother Raven could arrange it, if you could bring a couple of brothers that are from your generation, and perhaps we could discuss how we can use African political science to prevent non-Africans marketing grime, marketing our development. Because if you've noticed, brother, the non-African women are using the African woman's creativity dances and luring the young African youth in, which makes them participate in racial whitening, generational wealth. I think we need to have that type of topic, brother. All due respect to you.
Very true, brother. And I always say this: we appreciate Brother Kel's contribution because his scientific mind, how he connects things, is almost second to none.
Yeah, he brought that right back.
Yeah, and they're a brilliant man, and they contribute, and we always have to give thanks. And also, let me give thanks to Brother Payton because we met in a forum and we synchronized on ideas, and we've had different journeys, but we met at the same place. And brother, you're always welcome to come back, and we would like to see you back, as well as anyone else who you're involved with doing betterment work. But what are your final thoughts? Because you have your final thoughts, then we're going to end the show. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, is Empress coming back?
She said her internet is broken, so
I wonder what she had to say.
If you become a regular, you can have a chat about anything.
Yeah.
I think we also do. We always want to let the queens have their say because sometimes men we get into it, and you know, we might push people out. We never want to do that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
So go ahead, brother. Have your final thought.
No, I mean, one, I want to thank you for having me on. I mean, Brother Raven, this is a great conversation and great forum to have it. Brother Tail and Brother Teddy, you have some great perspectives, and it's good to have those conversations. I love that we chopped it up. Sister, I'm glad I don't know if she's still listening, but I'm glad she chimed in because we need your voices. Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, as brothers, we got to protect our women.
Agreed.
You know, no matter what. Like when it comes down to it, none of us are making any black babies without them.
No.
They are, and it's not just their womb that we need. Like we need their perspectives. We need that strength that they have, and we need that softness. There's a whole big part of it that's missing without them. And I think if anyone gets anything from this, as men, we need to step up. Like we need to settle down on the egos a little bit and listen to what our women have to say and learn and be better. That's it. We just got to be better. We got to step up to the challenge. So thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll check next week. Next week we might have a more quiet a show. I'm setting up to. We might be covering what you brought up there, Teddy. Some of the history of some of the abuse that black women have gone through, and there's campaigns now where we're trying to get justice for many black women who have suffered. So that's something that we might be doing next week, depending on if I can get the organizations right. But it was good to see you brothers coming week to week, especially Teddy and definitely Payton from across the sea. But Teddy, the younger generation, it'd be good to know what's going on down there so we have a connect. So hopefully we can touch base and we can do what Brother Kel talks about in seeing how people are using the music marketing to lure black men into not being with black women, this kind of stuff, right? So we'll do that. But for this show, Black Bearman, thank you, everyone.
B1.
And we'll check you next week. Thank you very much, family.
Ladies, brother. Have a good one.
Chris Christie for the contributions as well. I'm sure she could be here as well. Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
There you go. End the broadcast.